Emily stood in front of the mirror, barely recognizing the woman staring back at her. The white dress fit perfectly. Her hair was pinned exactly as she'd always imagined. But behind the elegance, there was something she couldn't shake. Her hands wouldn't stop trembling. The smile on her face? It was practiced, not real. She took a deep breath and glanced at the note again, folded neatly, tucked into the drawer of her old vanity. She hadn't read it in years, but today, on her wedding day, she couldn't resist. She had pulled it out before the makeup artist arrived, before her mother walked in smiling and teary-eyed, before the day swept her away. It was written in blue ink, slightly faded now. One line in particular had always stayed with her. "I'll come back for you. If I'm still the man you remember, I'll come back." Ethan. 7 years. No calls. No messages. No explanation. Just that note left on her windowsill the night he disappeared. And now she was marrying someone else. Daniel. A good man. Safe. Steady. Nothing like Ethan. There was a knock on the door. Her best friend, Laura, peeked in. "They're ready for you," she said softly. Emily nodded, but didn't move. "Everything okay?" She forced a smile. "Just nerves." Laura walked in and squeezed her hand. "You're about to marry the love of your life." Emily said nothing. Love of her life? Maybe. Or maybe just the man who had been there when she couldn't wait anymore. She walked out of the room slowly, bouquet in hand. The hallway was quiet except for the distant hum of the organ. Each step felt heavier than the last. When she reached the doors of the church, she could hear the whispers, the shifting of feet, the anticipation. Her father stood beside her, proud and composed. But even he noticed something. "You sure you're okay, sweetheart?" She looked up at him. "I will be." The doors opened. Everyone rose. The music swelled. She began walking. Rows of familiar faces turned toward her. Some smiling, some crying, some taking photos. And at the very end, there was Daniel, waiting, looking at her like she was everything he'd ever hoped for. But halfway down the aisle, something shifted. A breeze. A creak. She noticed a figure slipping into the very back row. He moved quietly, unnoticed by most, but not by her. She saw him instantly. The suit was darker than before, his face more aged. A faint line near his jaw that hadn't been there 7 years ago. Ethan. Her breath caught. She missed a step. Her father steadied her arm, whispering, "Easy now." She nodded quickly, pretending nothing happened. But her heart had already betrayed her. It raced, faster than it had in years. He didn't wave. He didn't smile. He just sat there, watching. What was he doing here? She hadn't heard from him since the night he vanished. No word. No apology. No explanation. And now he shows up on her wedding day? Emily's steps grew slower as they approached the altar. Daniel smiled warmly, reaching for her hand. She placed hers in his, but something fell off. His hand was warm, steady, familiar, but her other hand, clutching the bouquet, was ice cold. The priest began to speak, but Emily barely heard him. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. She felt Ethan's presence, every breath, every second, and the question she had buried deep for so long returned louder than ever. Why now? Why today? And why did her heart still know him so well? The ceremony continued, but Emily's mind drifted further from the altar with every passing second. The priest's voice echoed, but the words blurred into a distant hum. She could feel Daniel's eyes on her, full of hope, full of love. She tried to match his gaze, but something inside her had already turned away. In the back of the church, Ethan sat motionless. He hadn't changed seats, hadn't moved an inch. yet his presence filled the room like thunder rolling in the distance. She could feel it in her chest, like a memory refusing to stay buried. The priest asked Daniel to begin his vows. He turned to Emily, smiling nervously, his voice steady, but his hands a little unsure. "I never believed in fate until I met you," he began. Emily blinked slowly. Her eyes flickered from Daniel's face to the edge of the crowd. Ethan was still there, watching, silent. "I promised to stand by you in every storm," Daniel continued. "To make you laugh when life feels heavy. To carry your heart as if it were my own." The guests smiled. Some wiped tears. It was a beautiful vow, honest, thoughtful. But Emily barely heard it, because behind the vows, behind the warmth, there was something else growing. Doubt. The kind that didn't whisper. It screamed. The priest nodded to Emily. Her turn. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. A second passed. Then another. People shifted in their seats. Daniel gently squeezed her hand. She swallowed hard, then forced out the words. I promise to honor you," she said slowly. "To care for you. To be loyal." Her voice cracked. "To try." The last word slipped out without thought. Try. She hadn't written that in her vows. It wasn't supposed to be there. Try? Daniel's eyes narrowed for just a second. Just enough to notice. Emily looked down quickly, her cheeks flushed with heat. The priest moved on. The ceremony rolled forward. But the energy had changed. Emily wasn't the only one who felt it. In the back row, Ethan leaned forward slightly, his hands clasped together. Not tense, just waiting and watching. Daniel turned to his best man and received the ring. Emily did the same. And just as they were about to exchange them, the doors at the rear creaked again. Every head turned, but no one entered, just the wind. Emily turned her head instinctively. Ethan stood up. Not fast, not dramatic, just stood, like he had made a decision. People started murmuring. Daniel looked over his shoulder. "Who is that?" he asked under his breath. Emily didn't answer. Her lips parted, but her voice had vanished again. The priest hesitated. Ethan stepped into the aisle. Not rushed, calm, but certain. Eyes locked on Emily. The room went silent. No music, no whispers, just tension, heavy and sharp. Then Ethan spoke. Low, clear, steady. "She can't marry you." Gasps broke out. Chairs shifted. Someone dropped a phone. Daniel turned fully, stepping between Ethan and Emily. "Excuse me." Daniel's voice was firm. Ethan didn't look at him. His eyes never left hers. "She's mine," he said again. "She was always mine." Emily's breath caught. The bouquet slipped from her hand and hit the floor. The bouquet hit the floor with a soft thud, but it sounded like a thunderclap in the silence of the church. No one moved. No one breathed. Emily stared at the man standing in the aisle. The same man who had vanished without warning, who had promised her forever and then left her holding a note and nothing else. Daniel stepped forward, shielding her slightly with his body, his voice calm, but edged with something darker. "Who the hell do you think you are?" Ethan didn't flinch. "I'm the man she was supposed to marry," he said. "Before I made the biggest mistake of my life." There was a collective murmur from the crowd. A few guests stood, unsure if this was real or some elaborate scene. One of Daniel's cousins reached for his phone again. Another whispered something to the person next to him. Emily's heart pounded so hard it felt like it might break through her chest. She looked at Ethan, trying to read his face. He looked tired, older, but not broken. His eyes were steady, and in them, she saw the version of him that used to make her laugh. The version she cried over. The version she thought was gone forever. Daniel turned to her, whispering, "Emily, do you know him?" She nodded, slowly, barely. Ethan took another step forward. "I know I don't deserve to speak. I know this isn't fair to you. Or him. But I couldn't stay away." His voice was soft, but every word carried. "I thought leaving was the right thing. I thought I was doing you a favor. I wasn't ready. I didn't think I was enough for you." Daniel scoffed. "You're not." Ethan ignored him. "I built a life. I tried to forget, but I never could." He looked directly at Emily. "Every time I thought I'd moved on, your name would come back. Every time I laughed, it felt empty. Every time I saw a bride, I wondered if you'd be one of them." Emily's hands trembled again. Her throat tightened. She couldn't speak. Ethan stepped one more pace forward, just beyond the first row of pews. "I found out you were getting married 2 days ago. I booked the next flight. I didn't come to ruin your day. I came to ask one question." The priest looked around helplessly. No one knew what to do. Daniel's jaw tightened. His voice was low and sharp. "This is her wedding day. You're humiliating her." Ethan shook his head. "No, I'm telling her the truth." He turned to Emily again. "I love you. I always have. And if there's even one part of you that still wonders what we could have been, don't marry him just to move forward." Emily finally found her voice. "You left, Ethan." "I know. You promised you'd come back. I'm here now." Tears welled in her eyes. Her legs felt weak. Daniel turned to her. "You don't have to listen to this." But she already was. Because somewhere deep inside her, a door she thought was locked forever had just opened again. The guests waited, silent, on edge. And Emily stood between two lives. One built with time, the other built with memory. And now, both standing in front of her. The weight of the moment crushed the air out of the room. Emily stood frozen. The priest had stepped back, unsure of what to do. The guests didn't dare speak. Phones were recording, but no one moved. Every pair of eyes in the church was locked on her. Daniel reached for her hand. She let him, but didn't grip back. His voice was low, meant only for her. "You don't have to say anything. We can walk out of here right now." Forget he showed up. He had his chance. He gave it up. She didn't answer. Her eyes were still on Ethan, still searching for something. He looked back at her, not begging, just waiting, not forcing her, just showing up, finally, after all these years. Emily took a slow breath. Her lips parted, but the words came out in a whisper. "Why did you leave?" Ethan swallowed. His hands shook slightly at his sides. "I was scared. I thought I had to become something bigger before I could deserve you. But all I became was alone." Daniel stepped in again. "You're going to believe that? After 7 years of silence? He didn't fight for you then. I did. I've been here. Every day." That part was true. Daniel had shown up. Through everything. Steady, kind, patient. He had loved her without games. Without leaving. But Ethan wasn't lying either. She could see it. He looked like a man who had suffered his own choices. A man who didn't expect forgiveness, but came anyway. Just in case. "Why today?" she asked. "Why not a year ago? Why not before I built a life with him?" "Because I didn't know," Ethan said. "I wasn't watching you. I wasn't following your life. I heard by accident. Someone I used to know saw your engagement photo. I thought I could live with it. I told myself you were happy, and that had to be enough." His voice broke a little. But it wasn't. "I couldn't let it happen without at least saying what I should have said back then." Daniel's jaw tightened. "This isn't love," he said, his voice louder now. "This is guilt. This is showing up because you finally realized what you lost." Ethan looked at him for the first time. "No. This is love. It was always love. I just didn't know how to carry it. Emily's knees felt weak. She stepped back just once, just enough to breathe. The church held its breath with her. The silence was deep, heavy. Then, from one of the front pews, a voice spoke up. Her mother. "Emily," she said softly, "no one can tell you what to do. But whatever you choose, make sure it's not out of fear. Make sure it's not out of guilt." Emily turned, surprised to hear her speak. Her mother had always supported Daniel, loved him like a son. But even now, her eyes were gentle. No pressure, no judgment, just truth. Emily looked at Daniel. He looked back, holding his breath. She looked at Ethan. He didn't move. He didn't beg. She turned away from both of them, walked toward the window. Tears slid down her cheek as she looked out. Her reflection in the glass didn't look like a bride anymore. She looked like a woman standing on the edge of her past and her future. And no matter what she chose next, something would break. Emily wiped the tears from her cheeks, feeling the weight of every gaze in the room pressing down on her. Her heart felt like it was split in two, pulled by memories and promises, past and present, fear and hope. The silence in the church was suffocating. Every breath a reminder of the choice she had to make. Daniel stepped closer, his voice steady but kind. "Whatever you decide, Emily, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." She looked at him, his eyes full of warmth and sincerity. He was the man who had waited patiently, who had built a life around her, even when she wasn't sure she was ready to say yes. He had been her anchor, steady through every storm. But then her eyes found Ethan again. He was still standing in the aisle, calm, not daring to ask for anything, but offering everything. His presence was raw and real, full of regret, but also hope. The man who had once promised forever and left, now returned, willing to fight for her. Emily's mind raced back to those early days with Ethan, the laughter under starry skies, the whispered dreams of a future they never got to build. She remembered the note, folded and hidden for years, the only proof that he had meant what he said. But then the pain of his absence hit her again. The nights she cried alone, the unanswered questions, the years spent trying to forget. How could she trust someone who disappeared without explanation? How could she open her heart again? Her fingers tightened around the window frame, her knuckles white. The future she had imagined was suddenly uncertain. Everything she thought was clear was now clouded by doubt. She turned slowly to face both men. "I don't know what to do," she admitted, her voice trembling. "I thought I had my answer. That Daniel was my safe place. That he was my future." She looked at Daniel, then back at Ethan. "But then you showed up, Ethan. And all those feelings I buried, they came rushing back. How am I supposed to choose between the man who stayed and the man who left?" Ethan took a small step forward, his voice soft but unwavering. "I'm not asking you to choose right now. I just want a chance to explain, to show you that I'm different, that I never stopped loving you." Daniel nodded slowly, his expression unreadable. "And I want you to know that I respect whatever choice you make. But I hope you see the man who's been here for you every day." The guests watched silently, the tension thick in the air. Emily's chest tightened as the two men waited for her decision. It was too much to take in all at once. She closed her eyes, searching deep inside for clarity. The love she felt for Ethan was tangled with years of hurt and longing. The love for Daniel was steady and real, built on kindness and trust. She thought about her future, what kind of life she wanted, and with whom. She thought about forgiveness, about second chances, and about moving forward without regrets. Finally, she opened her eyes, her voice quiet but certain. "I need time." Both men nodded, understanding the weight of her words. "I can't make this decision today. Not like this, in front of everyone." The priest stepped forward gently. Perhaps it's best to pause the ceremony. A murmur of agreement spread through the crowd. Emily took a shaky breath, feeling a strange mix of relief and fear. The day she thought would be her happiest had turned into a crossroads she never expected. Daniel reached for her hand again. This time she took it. Ethan stepped back but kept his eyes on her, silently promising to wait. The church slowly emptied as guests whispered among themselves. Outside, the sun shone bright, but inside, Emily felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her like never before. She knew her life was about to change forever, and the choice she made next would define everything. The church emptied slowly, the guests whispering behind hands and exchanging puzzled glances. Emily stayed seated, her fingers still entwined with Daniel's, though her mind was miles away. The silence felt heavier now, thick with questions that had no easy answers. Daniel looked at her, concern etched deep in his eyes. "Are you sure you want to do this? To put everything on hold?" Emily nodded, her throat tight. "I need to think. I owe that much to both of you, and to myself." He squeezed her hand gently. "Whatever you decide, I'm here." Outside the church, the late afternoon sun cast long shadows over the quiet streets. Emily stepped onto the steps, the cool air brushing against her skin. She looked down the empty path, feeling like she was standing at the edge of a cliff, not knowing whether to leap or step back. Her phone buzzed in her purse. A message from Ethan. Asterisk, "Can we talk?" "Please. I'm at the cafe down the street." Asterisk. Her heart fluttered with nerves and hesitation. She didn't know if she was ready to face him again, to hear words she had imagined for years but never truly believed she'd get. Still, the pull was too strong. Emily found herself walking toward the cafe, the weight of the day pressing on her shoulders. When she entered, Ethan was already there, sitting by the window, watching the world outside as if waiting for something, waiting for her. He stood as she approached, eyes searching hers. "Thank you for coming," he said quietly. She nodded. "I needed to hear from you. After today, everything is so confusing." Ethan gestured to the seat across from him. "Let's start with the truth." Emily sat, her fingers twisting the edge of her sleeve nervously. "I left because I was afraid. I thought if I stayed, I would lose you, or you'd see the man I was trying to hide, the one who wasn't good enough." He paused, taking a deep breath. "I made mistakes. I ran away instead of fighting. And for that, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for every lonely night you spent wondering why I vanished. I'm sorry I didn't come back sooner." Emily's eyes filled with tears she fought to hold back. Why now? Why after all this time? Ethan looked down, then back at her with steady honesty. "I found out you were getting married. I thought if I didn't say something, I'd lose you forever." She shook her head, emotion swirling. "Do you really think you can just walk back in after all these years?" "I don't expect forgiveness," he said. "Not today, not tomorrow. I just want a chance to prove I'm here now, that I want to be part of your life again, if you'll let me." Emily wiped her cheek, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know if I can trust that." Ethan reached across the table, his hand hovering near hers. "I'll earn it, one day at a time." She looked at his hand, hesitated, then slowly placed hers beneath it. The warmth spread through her, a faint spark of hope amidst the confusion. Outside, the sun began to dip lower, casting golden light through the cafe windows. Emily knew her heart was still tangled between past and present, between the safety Daniel offered and the passion Ethan reignited. She wasn't ready to choose yet, but for the first time in a long while, she felt a flicker of possibility. Maybe this time, she could find the answers she needed. And maybe, just maybe, she could find a way to heal. Days passed like a restless tide, pulling Emily between memories and realities she hadn't dared to face. Her mornings were haunted by Ethan's words, his apologies, the softness in his eyes that begged for a second chance. Yet evenings found her beside Daniel, whose quiet strength reminded her of what steady love could be: reliable, patient, unwavering. One afternoon, Emily sat on a worn bench in the park, her hands folded tightly in her lap. The sky was a soft gray, mirroring the turmoil inside her. She thought about the path ahead, how every choice felt like stepping into the unknown. Her phone buzzed with a message from Daniel. Asterisk, whenever you're ready, I'm here. Asterisk, she smiled faintly, grateful for his kindness, but also overwhelmed by the weight of her indecision. Then a call from Ethan came. His voice trembled as he spoke. Emily, I don't want to pressure you, but I need you to know something. I've changed. Not just for you, but for myself. Curiosity and caution warred inside her. How? He hesitated. After I left, I faced a lot of my demons. I went to therapy. I built a business from scratch. I stopped running. I realized that love isn't about perfect moments. It's about fighting for the imperfect ones. Emily listened, feeling the sincerity in his voice. But years of hurt whispered a warning she couldn't ignore. Why didn't you reach out sooner? She asked softly. Fear, he admitted. Fear of rejection, of breaking your heart again. But today, I'm stronger. I'm ready to be the man you deserve. She closed her eyes, trying to imagine a life rebuilt from ashes. A life where trust could grow again. Meanwhile, Daniel arranged a quiet dinner at her favorite restaurant. Over candlelight, he spoke about their future, not as a fantasy, but as a promise. I don't expect you to decide now, he said, but I want you to know I'll stand by you, whatever you choose. Emily appreciated his patience, yet her heart was restless. The image of Ethan's return haunted her dreams, reminding her of a love that was wild and raw, painful, but alive. One evening, Emily found herself walking the streets alone, the cool air filling her lungs. She stopped at a bridge overlooking the river, the water shimmering beneath the moonlight. It was here she allowed herself to feel everything: the regret, the hope, the fear. Suddenly, her phone rang again. Ethan, can we meet? I think you deserve the truth. All of it. She hesitated, then agreed. At a small cafe, Ethan looked tired but determined. Emily, there's something I never told you back then. Something that made me leave. She leaned in, heart pounding. I was afraid not just of being inadequate, but of losing you to someone else. I saw signs you were moving on, and I panicked. I ran to protect myself, but all I did was hurt you. Emily's throat tightened. The pain in his confession echoed her own. Why didn't you say this before? Because I was weak, he said simply. But I'm not that man anymore. Silence stretched between them. Then Ethan reached out, taking her hand gently. I'm not asking for a decision today, just for a chance to show you who I am now. Emily looked at his hand in hers, the warmth seeping in. The world around them faded, leaving only the fragile hope of what might be. For the first time in years, she felt that maybe, just maybe, love could be reborn from the broken pieces. The days grew longer, and Emily found herself standing at a crossroads she never imagined she'd face. The wedding she had planned, the vows she thought she would say, were now suspended in a fragile pause. Each morning brought a swirl of emotions, a tempest of hope, fear, and uncertainty she struggled to untangle. Daniel remained steadfast, his presence a steady anchor in the chaos. He didn't rush her or demand answers. Instead, he offered patience wrapped in quiet strength, reminding her that love could be a calm harbor, even after the storm. Take all the time you need, he said one evening, his voice gentle. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. But then there was Ethan, the ghost from her past who had stepped back into her life with a raw honesty she couldn't ignore. His apologies were more than words. They were promises etched in the pain of lost years. Every conversation with him was a reminder of what once was and what could be, if only she dared to hope. Emily realized she had to face her own heart to decide what kind of future she wanted, not for anyone else, but for herself. One rainy afternoon, she found herself back at the church, standing alone in the empty pews where the wedding had almost happened. The scent of polished wood and old hymnals filled the air. She ran her fingers along the edge of the seat, memories flooding in, laughter, tears, whispered promises. Her phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. Asterisk, thinking of you. Always. Asterisk, and one from Ethan. Asterisk, can we talk? No pressure. Asterisk. Emily closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Later that evening, she met Ethan at a quiet park bench beneath a canopy of twinkling stars. The night was cool, but the air between them was charged. I want you to know, Ethan began, voice steady, that I've changed. Not just for you, but for me. I'm ready to face the future, whatever that looks like, with honesty and courage. Emily searched his face, seeing a man who had carried his mistakes, but refused to be defined by them. I never stopped loving you, he said simply. Her heart ached with the weight of those words. I don't know what tomorrow holds, she whispered, but I want to find out. I want to be brave. Ethan smiled softly, reaching out to take her hand. Meanwhile, Daniel waited patiently, understanding that love sometimes means stepping back so someone else can step forward. Emily knew the path ahead wouldn't be easy. Forgiveness wouldn't come overnight, and healing would take time. But for the first time in years, she felt a glimmer of hope, a chance to write a new story, not bound by past mistakes, but filled with possibility. The next morning, Emily made a choice, not just about love, but about herself. She called Daniel first. Thank you, she said, her voice warm, for everything, for your kindness and patience. I need time to heal, and you've given me space to do that. Then she sent a message to Ethan. I'm ready to see where this goes. But it has to be real, no more running. They both understood. Emily was no longer the frightened girl who lost her way. She was a woman brave enough to face the unknown, strong enough to choose her own happiness. And as she stepped out into the sunlight, her heart finally felt free.